Let's talk about a very popular option nowadays when people enter retirement or disability benefits or survivor benefits or spouse benefits or whatever the case may be, moving overseas. And we just did a poll. This is also a live Q&A, so we've got some people answering here that living outside the United States. There are about 6% of you as of right now that actually live outside of the United States. And 30% are thinking about it. And the other 64% say, no, I want to stay in the United States. So, okay, so we got about 36% of the people out there that this information is very, very important for. And the other 64%, stick around after I finish talking about living overseas. If you've got any questions on all things Social Security, retirement, disability, survivor benefits, Medicare, make sure you type them in the Q&A, and I'll get to as many as I possibly can. Okay, so for those thinking about it, the question I'm sure is, can you? And the answer is yes, you can live overseas and collect Social Security benefits. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Social Security benefits. I'm not gonna talk about SSI. SSI is Supplemental Security Income. That's the welfare-based program that Social Security administers, and that's you can't really live. You can go overseas for a small amount of time, about a month or so, but I'm not going to talk about SSI. I'm going to talk about straight retirement benefits, survivor benefits, SSDI, Social Security Disability Insurance, spouse benefits, and those type of benefits. But I'm not going to talk about SSI because that's a whole different ball of wax there. All right. So, can you, if you're receiving any of those benefits? Yes, you absolutely can. Regular viewers to my channel know there are two places you can't, and I can hear them all say North Korea and Cuba. So, Social Security cannot send your money if you're enjoying the beaches of North Korea or Cuba, whichever one has the nice beaches. But any other place, particularly if you're a U.S. citizen, and there's different categories. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you can live anywhere in the world except for, North Korea. And, even in those countries, you can technically live in those countries. You just can't get your Social Security benefits. And then if you're a U.S. citizen, if your benefits essentially be on hold. And then when you go to a country that Social Security can send your benefits to, then they'll just reimburse you all those months you didn't get it. So anyway, but if you're a U.S. citizen, you can pretty much live anywhere in the world with no issues whatsoever. Well, I would say no issues, but we'll talk about what kind of issues you're looking at here. All right. So Social Security does a nice little pamphlet there, your payments while outside the United States. So definitely download that, take a look at it. It gets into quite a lot of detail because there are exceptions, the exceptions, the exceptions with all things Social Security. Um, and yeah, and there's what's called totalization agreements. Social Security has agreements with various countries to where Social Security says, okay, hey, country X, if we'll give your citizens these type of benefits if you promise to give our citizens these type of benefits. So they're kind of international agreements that the Social Security Administration has with other Social Security administrations throughout the world. And the best way to check if whatever country you're intending to go to, contact that particular embassy, the consulate in that particular country. Usually, if you're a U.S. citizen, it's not an issue. If you're not a U.S. citizen, there is a great little payments abroad screening tool. So if you're a green card holder, you haven't been naturalized yet, then you just go in here, and it's a very, very easy little payments abroad screening tool, and you just put are you going to move outside the United States? Yes, I'm going to move outside. Are you a U.S. citizen? And then do you currently receive benefits? Yes, I receive benefits. And you can put pretty much any country in there. Let's put Belgium in there. And it says, yep, you're a U.S. citizen, so you're good. Enjoy your life. If you're not a U.S. citizen, then it gets into a little bit more detail. And each country is a little bit different. People ask me all the time and says, well, I live in this particular country. Can I get it? Can my, spouse get it who's not a U.S. citizen? And it really depends on the large totalization agreement that the United States has with your particular country. And the best way to determine that is to contact the federal benefits unit or the consulate in that particular country to get all the details before you go over there. But for most places, again, if you're a U.S. citizen, it's not an issue. You can receive benefits. So if you're thinking about that, so you pick a country, as long as it's not those two countries, and you want to go ahead and retire overseas or continue to collect your Social Security disability benefits overseas, no problems whatsoever. If you are going to file a new claim, so if you're going to, go ahead and leave and go to a particular country and then want to file a claim overseas for retirement benefits, spouse benefits, yes, you can do that. However, I wouldn't recommend it because it takes 10 times longer, because you'll have to go to the local consulate or the local embassy, and they don't have Social Security staff there. There are a few what's called federal benefits units. Like in Asia, the only one is in Manila. So if you're in Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Japan, China, Korea, you have to deal with the federal benefits unit in Manila, and there's only one person there that is actual a Social Security employee. So there's only about a dozen or so throughout the United States. So what it is, if you go to a consulate or an embassy, someone just kind of, who's not an expert in it, takes the claim for you and then sends it back to Baltimore to the Office of International Operations, and it takes forever. So what I recommend is, before you leave the United States, go ahead and start your benefits if you're able to. To your local district office, file online, whatever the case may be. If you want to file online overseas, sometimes you're able to do it, but Social Security, their computer system in this regard is, pretty kind of secure, in the sense of, sometimes I hear a lot of people, they can't get into SSA.gov overseas and they can't file a claim overseas from overseas. There's, VPN, sometimes you can get around that. But just to be on the safe side, I would definitely try to file your claim before you leave. And what do you use for your address? Social Security, when you file a claim, you always give two addresses. You give where you actually live, your residence, and then you also give your mailing address. So if you're going to be living overseas, you can give your overseas address, and then you can, give an address for, virtual post office or a relative's house or something like that, somewhere that will check your mail, because it's very, very, very important that you check your mail in case you get anything from Social Security. What do you do about actual money? Direct deposit in a U.S. bank account. Easiest way to do it, no issues. If you want to use a foreign bank account, you definitely can, but I warn you that Social Security employees at the district offices and other places, they mess those up quite a bit. The SWIFT code and all this other kind of stuff, and sometimes they don't put it in right. So what I recommend is using a U.S. bank account first, and then if you want to switch to a foreign bank account, go ahead and do it, but don't close out your previous bank account before you confirm that the money goes into the new bank account. Okay, so I see that happen a lot of the time. They switch to a foreign bank account and they close out their other one, and then it gets messed up and they're out of check for 1 or 2 or 3 months. So just be on the safe side there. If in terms of transferring money, I'm sure there's a lot of people. There's what do we got here? I live out. There's 12% on that actually live out the United States. So let us know in the live Q&A, or if you're watching this on a recording later, put in the description what country you live in, what country you're thinking about moving to, and then maybe someone else living in that country can kind of give you some heads up in terms of the issues you'll have to deal with for Social Security, and also in terms of getting money over there and filing a claim and getting help. But what a lot of people do is they just get the U.S. bank account and then they transfer money. There's TransferWise, I think it's now called Wise, or you can just do call your bank and tell them to do a wire transfer from your bank to whatever, or get some type of bank that has an ATM in your particular country. Sometimes the fees are kind of expensive to pull out of an ATM, but anyway, so those are some options. What about taxes? Death and taxes. Yes, as a U.S. citizen, you'll have to pay taxes on any income that an American citizen makes overseas. So again, there's limits. You'll have to talk to your tax person on that. I think it's 75,000 or something. As long as you're under that, you don't. But anyway, so if all you have is your Social Security benefits, you might not have to pay taxes anyway. Federally, might be a different issue for your state. But in terms of the payments abroad screening tool, go into my YouTube description and it has it in there on if you can get payments abroad. And whether you have to pay taxes. I've got the link to the IRS website in my YouTube description. Go in there, and it'll tell you whether you actually have to pay taxes on it. So one of the other issues is Medicare. Big question I get all the time. Person is living overseas, and they have some form of health insurance overseas, and they say, I don't want to pay for Medicare, the $185, because I'm never coming back. Okay. All right. If you know for sure 100% you are never coming back, you're never going to get sick or homesick, or the political situation in your particular country is going to go south, you're 100% certain you're never coming back, then why pay for the $185 for your Medicare, Part B? But if you do that and you do get sick or homesick or whatever the case may be, and you have to come back to the United States and you've canceled Part B, then you're going to have some issues, because you won't be able to start Part B again until the general enrollment period, which is January, February, and March. So I've seen too many people, they get sick or something and they come back in July and they've canceled Part B, and they've got they have Part A for the hospital, but they don't have Part B for the actual doctor. So you can go into the hospital, but the doctor, you have to pay out of pocket for the actual doctor. So you can't get that until January, February, and March during the general enrollment period. And you're going to have to pay a penalty for the rest of your life, 10% for every 12 months you did not have Part B. And this is also for Part D, the prescription drug plan. You can't sign up for that until January, February, March as well, until you get Part B. And you're going to get a penalty, 1% for every month you didn't have Part D when you were supposed to. So you really, really need to make a good consideration of all of those factors. Again, if you're never going to come back, you're never going to get penalized. That's the thing. You only get penalized is when you sign up later. If you never intend to sign up for Medicare, then there's no penalty because you're not going to sign up. But so I would definitely think about that. Another thing is, if you're living overseas, you will get this form. It's called the proof of life form, or some people call it I ain't dead form. Because when you're in the United States, if you pass away, then the coroner's office and the funeral homes notify the particular state, and the state notifies the Social Security Administration. Social Security notifies the Department of Treasury, and they, pull out that last check and, stop payments. But if you're living overseas, then obviously Social Security doesn't have the agreement with all those countries overseas. So they send you a proof of life form every now and then, every once a year, or every 2 years, sometimes not. So yeah, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason when you get it. But anyway, if you don't fill it out and return it, they'll stop your benefits. So what they do is in May or June, they'll send out this, it's SSA 7162, and you have to fill it out and return it. And if you don't return it within 60 days, Social Security makes another attempt in September and October. They send it out, and if you don't return it then they'll cut off your benefits, and you will have a very, very difficult time restarting those benefits. But there's a new trick a lot of people don't know about. So let's see, we got 14% live outside the United States, according to our poll right now, and 34% are thinking about it. So I wonder if you all knew about this. This is an emergency message that came out January 10th, and it's still applicable. and it says allowing Signer attestation on the 7161 and 7162. The 7161 is a representative payee. So if you are not taking care of your own benefits, if you're overseas and you're kind of in a nursing home or you're unable to take care of your own benefits, then someone else is taking care of your benefits for you, then the 7161 goes to them. If you are taking care of your own benefits, then that 7162, the proof of life form, comes to you. But there is a trick here. Social Security, for this cycle, as of right now, these two forms may be completed and signed by Social Security staff or Department of State staff within the federal benefits unit using attestation. And what that basically means is you can call the 800 number or call your local office back in your particular state or whatever, or call the federal benefits unit and say, hey, I got this form, I need to fill it out, but mail, I'm worried about mail and yada, yada, yada. And so let's just go ahead and do this over the phone through an attestation. And they can do it, and they'll read you. During this interview, we will ask you questions that will be used to complete your foreign enforcement questionnaire. At the end of the info, you should be aware they'd be held legally responsible for giving us false information. You can tell I've said that about a million times. This is typical attestation for Social Security. But you can do this over the phone now, but a lot of people don't know about it. So when you call the 800 number, your local office, you tell them, I will put this reference in the description of this particular video. So if you're watching this later and you call up the 800 number and you say, hey, I got this letter, but I don't want my benefits to stop, and mail in my country is not that great. So I want to go ahead and do this over the phone. And probably they're going to say, no, you can't do it over the phone. And then you say, well, you need to reference emergency message 25004. And then they'll reference that and they'll say, oh, okay. All right, let's go ahead and do it. And that way your benefits won't stop. So that is a, insider tip that a lot of people don't know out there. All right, so let's, and there's millions of variations and millions of different questions people have about moving overseas and all the rest of it. In terms of disability, yes, there are a lot of people that are receiving Social Security disability insurance that are living overseas, and it's not an issue until you get your CDR, continuing disability review. And when you get it, you just have to go through the procedures and, obviously they're not going to have you do, see a consultative exam in the United States. They'll, a lot of people are on disability live overseas. So it's, if you're on disability or low benefits in terms of retirement benefits, it's very difficult to live in the United States. And I guess it's one way you can avoid all of the coming tariffs on all products is if you don't live in the United States, you go directly to that country and you live in that country. I guess there's no tariffs, right? So there's that. All right. Let's get into some particular questions. It doesn't need to be about living overseas. You can ask anything. Mary says, thank you for what you do. You're welcome. Can I do deemed filing online? I think you said I could get money off my husband's benefits. I started drawing at 62, now 79. He drew at 66, now 80. Yes, you can. Yeah, deemed filing, it just basically says that you have to file for all other benefits you're entitled to when you file for benefits on your own record. So maybe they'll determine when your benefits are going to start, but maybe you should have filed, a long time ago. And then that might be good. They might give you all that back pay. But yes, you can definitely, you're just basically talking about a spouse claim because he is still out there. So it's not a survivor claim. You can't do a survivor claim online, but you can do a spouse claim. Yes, 100%. And somebody, I don't see the question, but somebody asked a question yesterday, and there might have been some miscommunication on what her particular situation is. But I guess she called Social Security and they'd said had to be divorced for 2 years. So if that's the case, the only time someone has to be divorced for 2 years to get spouse benefits is if we're talking about independently entitled divorced spouse benefits. So the person out there that asked that question, and I don't see it there, unfortunately, but So it sounds as though your ex hasn't started benefits, but your ex is at least 62 years old. So if your ex spouse is at least 62 years old, but they haven't started benefits on their own record, no problem. However, you do have to be finally divorced from that person for 2 years. Okay. If your ex spouse has filed for benefits, the 2 year thing, no relevance. It doesn't apply. So if your ex is 62 or 63 or 68 or whatever the case may be, and they're already receiving benefits, then no problem whatsoever. You just file for benefits on your own record, and then you file for benefits on their record, and you could be divorced a day. It's not an issue. So just want to make sure we're clear there. Oh, Tweety Bird, thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see here. Dr. Ed, savings for New Jersey residents 65 and over are now eligible to pay only 50% of their property taxes, signed by Governor Murphy as Stay New Jersey program. All right, thank you. Into law in November 2024. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'm ultimately going to do on my new website I'm building now is have a category, because one of my really popular videos is called Living on Social Security Alone. And I've got a link to that in my description. It gives about 50 different things maybe that might be able to save you some money, get you some extra benefits. And I want to put a database together of stuff like that. So I'm going to add that within the next probably several months to my website. So y'all can add, you can go in there and say, hey, in New Jersey, we've got this, that, and the other. That way we can have a nice little resource for everybody. A lot of people out there struggling. So thank you for that information. I appreciate it. And if it happens in New Jersey, just might happen in other places, right? Yeah. So started retirement benefits in January. Final paycheck in February 2025 included payout of 239 hours for unused leave earned prior to 2025. Can I deduct this payout when calculating my 25 wages for Social Security earnings test? Yeah, so this comes from previous earnings, so it's not based on your current work once you start receiving your Social Security benefit. So they should make an exception for that. In terms of now, you don't really have to do anything. You can't really do anything. When 2026 rolls around, and if Social Security sends you a nasty gram that says, hey, you said you were going to be under the annual earnings limit of the 23,400, but you weren't. You owe us money. Then you just go down there and say, yeah. That extra money was from the previous year. And then they'll go ahead and correct that. So you don't have to do anything now. You just keep that information, keep those documents. And then if you get that overpayment letter next year, then you just have to take it down there and they'll fix it for you. Dr. Weir, I enjoy watching your videos. I have no questions for you. I think you are doing a service to help people, yet it seems the more you give of your time, many people are rude, crude, and ungrateful. Thank you, Beverly. I appreciate that. Old Marine Corps Sergeant. So I kind of like that part. So reminds me of 17 years old in boot camp. So anyway, a friend of mine, 60 years old, naturalized citizen, is planning to return and retire in Slovakia. If he plans to leave before 62, is it better to set up paperwork with Social Security before he leaves the U.S.? Yes. Yes, 100%. If at all possible. If it's not possible, then you just have to go through the process. Just understand that it's going to take a long, long time to get your application processed. In Slovakia, I think the closest one, the federal benefits unit, is in Germany, perhaps. I don't think there's one in Eastern Europe. But anyway. Maria, you seem to be a smart, sensible person. I welcome reprieve in this chat. Oh, okay. All right. I like it when we, yes, I like it when we talk nice to each other. Abby, I called my local Social Security and was off the phone in less than 13 minutes, just a half an hour ago. Awesome, Abby. Good. Awesome. So even with all of the challenges, there's some offices that are able to do something. But that's one of the problems. That's one of the problems I always had with Social Security is that it's called workload mobility. Is my office, we were the third busiest in the country, and we were always underwater. we always needed more staff and better computer systems and everything. But there's some offices in the country and out in the country and in the desert and, out in the, wherever that, kind of like, have it kind of easy and only have, 13-minute wait times. But I bet you there's several offices in that state that could say, come on, if you're able to only answer the phone that quickly, you need to help us out there. So yeah, the Social Security needs to work on workload mobility a little bit better. So I that would be bad for yours because it would increase your wait time on that. But it's yeah. Anyway, so Yoli, my disabled son has lived with his fiance since 2013, and they have 4 children together. They want to get married, but he was told that he could lose his SSI and disabled adult child benefits if they, yes, particularly the disabled adult child benefits, the DAC benefits. If you get married, because, a disabled adult child is receiving benefits from a parent because so they're considered a child of that. But when they get married, Congress has determined, well, you're not really kind of in the child status because you've now remarried, unless there is an exception, as always, unless that disabled adult child marries another disabled adult child. But yes, unfortunately, the disabled adult child benefits will stop. SSI, that's, hopefully he is notifying Social Security and about living arrangements, that he's living with this person and how much is coming into the household and stuff like that. So that shouldn't be an issue, but the disabled adult child benefits just very well might stop. But however, if he's receiving SSI and disabled adult child benefits, that means his disabled adult child benefits is under $967 because that's what SSI is. So if he's receiving $1 of SSI, that means his DAC benefits are below $967. So if he gets kicked off of disabled adult child benefits, he'll still get the $967. So his benefit amount won't change. But then SSI depends how much his new spouse will make, because that is a welfare-based program. So let's see here. Asked Social Security for spousal support for husband. He retired 62. His PI at 66 would have been 1,600. 50% of my PA is 1,550, 89 difference. Said he wasn't eligible. Told them to do application anyway. Yeah, so it's so 15. So his would be 1639. So yeah, if the numbers work there, and in terms of if he's working, you said he's retired at 62. Yeah, if they run the numbers and you don't think the numbers are correct, you just tell them to take an application, because you probably talk to someone at the front window, not a Title II CS, the Title II of the Social Security Act. Those are the people that do the retirement. That's what I was before I became a manager. And they're not experts. So to get a definitive decision, you actually have to file a claim. And then they'll put in his Social Security number, your Social Security number, and then you'll get a definitive decision on if there's any benefits available there. And then they'll send you a letter that says, yeah, because of the calculations, it's, yeah. So thanks for all you do and your son do for us. People, please like and subscribe, and let's smash the cap. Yes, thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. I am an Australian citizen on spouse support for my deceased American husband. I am concerned I could lose it. Yeah, it really depends on if you're a U.S. citizen or a green card holder, and the Australian, totalization agreement with the United States. But if you've been receiving it, and you're allowed to receive it in that country based on your status and all that kind of stuff, if you've been receiving it, then yeah, you should be good. Perhaps you're concerned about the current administration and, they're going after, whatever. Yeah, that's, that is perhaps an issue, but I haven't heard anything about that particular type of benefit being targeted. So as of right now, you're good. So I wouldn't worry about it. Can a person go from Social Security to Social Security disability? from go from regular retirement benefits to disability? Yes. If you're under your full retirement age, absolutely. Um, Once you hit your full retirement age, your benefits are actually switched. I'm actually going to do a video um, with a little bit of a shocking title and thumbnail, but I want to get people out there to watch it and realize, because there's a lot of people out there that are doing the wrong things on disability. So I might do that later today or tomorrow. So, okay, I already answered that one. Can the student loans, I was waiting for this question. Can the student loans garnish my Social Security if the monthly payment is less than $1,500 and 1965, 1966 are not on my Social Security earnings history? Is this because I work for a Labor Department those years? Yeah, according to the new Treasury offset program that they reinstated, they can hold up to 15% of your Social Security benefits. So yes, that is a possible issue. Your 65 and 66 earnings, that sounds correct. If you work for the Labor Department those years, then you were under the old CSRS, the old Civil Service Retirement System. And before the 1980s, they didn't pay into Social Security. So that's probably the case. So I'm a new member. Great job you're doing. Subscribed 2 days ago. All right, Lisa, thank you. Thank you for the subscription. Doesn't cost anything. Just smash the little subscribe thing there. And that way it tells these crazy algorithms that this is important information. It gets out to more people. And yeah, more people get the help they need. Hello, doctor question. Can medical documents that are submitted for SSDI be sufficiently translated, language versus language? Thank you in advance. Yeah. If you've got medical records in another language, you submit it to it. To Social Security. Most times, I think medical records too, don't do your own translations. Don't, waste time on your own translations, birth certificates and stuff like that, because Social Security has to do it themselves. So yeah, submit those documents. But documents, I've talked about this a few times in the disability claims, the disability application process videos I've talked about. Medical documents for a disability claim. People say, well, I'll go ahead and file once I get all my documents together. And number one, don't file and then start getting your stuff, because you're going to be waiting months and months and months and months to get your disability claim approved or, decided. And every day you wait is you're wasting time. So file for those benefits and then start worrying about whatever documents you need after that. In terms of medical documents, with my experience, I wouldn't even for in most cases, I wouldn't even provide medical documents unless it's like a real slam dunk. You have, the terminal something, and there's just like one page from your doctor that says, yeah, this person, terrible car accident, terminal illness or whatever, then yes. But if you have like hundreds of pages, I wouldn't waste your time on it. Why? Because guess what? People fake medical documents. And what they do is, what we found is they submit their own medical documents, let's say 100, 150 pages. And then they look through that 150 pages before they send it in, and they take out the ones that they think might not be, good for their case. And so it's 150 pages, but they only send 112 pages. And so the people that are reviewing your medical records or reviewing your medical case, they're like, these pages aren't numbered. I'm not sure if they took out anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and request it from the doctor or the clinic or the hospital directly. That way I know I got the whole package. So they just might take your medical records and just shred it, basically. So, yeah, if you want to provide it, more power to you. But I just want to, kind of give you that heads up. They might request it again directly from your medical provider. So, Karen, I'm opting to start my benefits now that I turned 62 in April. I set up an online in February. Why will I have to wait until June to receive the first remittance instead of May? Okay, number one, you have to be 62 the entire month. Social Security considers you to attain that age the day before. So if you were born on April 1st, then you can start your benefits in April, because they considered you to turn 62 May 31st. Anyway, March 31st. But if you weren't born on the 1st, then you have to be 62 the entire month. So your first benefit, you're entitled, your first month you're entitled is May. And then the May check comes in June. So that happens for everybody. So there's that. Star Child, what's up, Star Child? I got an appointment from my ex-husband, Social Security, June 24th. Do I have a good chance for his Social Security? They actually called me back. Wow, they actually called you back. So that's always a beautiful thing. It really depends. You were married to the person for 10 years. You're good there. So you jump that, right? You're not currently married. Now the trick is your benefit amount, your full benefit amount, less than half of his. So if it is, then you've got some money coming to you. So let's see. Oh, Australia has an agreement with the US at the moment. LOL. Who knows what the future will bring? Yeah, I don't think, because there's a lot of an attempts to kind of, stop benefits and block benefits, cut staff. And, that's essentially behind the kind of a sneaky way to, get people to not be able to get their benefits. But I don't see anything. That's one of the reasons I was kind of hesitant to do this video, is to talk about it. And that way, someone in, wherever says, oh, there are people overseas receiving benefits. Well, let's cut them off. Yeah, which I don't think they can, because that would have to go through Congress. And so, yeah, hopefully it doesn't. So if you're thinking about, going overseas or something like that, and what do we got? 33% of the poll are thinking about going overseas, and 50% say, no, I want to stay in the United States. So Denise, I uploaded my IRMA form via my SSA account, but filled it out wrong. I resubmitted it the same way correctly. Do you think SSA will action the second submission? Yeah, once they go in there and they pull that down and they look at the documents, and if there's two, and if you dated it, the different, when they submit it, it'll have a different date that it was submitted. So they'll look at the later one, unless someone already went in there and grabbed the first one and is starting to take action on that one. And then you'll just have to wait for the next person to go in there and grab that second one and make whatever correction. So, okay. I already talked about student loans. Jackie B, why don't you try asking your question now? It's pretty early in the chat. Okay. All right. I know who Jackie B is. If I see her, I'll make sure I answer that question. My husband has an incorrect suffix on his Social Security profile. Should we try to have it corrected? Tried when he filed the first time for benefits, but it was not changed. If he was able to go through the system and he's getting his benefits, I wouldn't worry about it. I had that same problem too. I'm a junior, and so I always get messed up at the airport, and yeah, it's a nightmare. So, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If he's getting his benefits, and one of the other things, when you file your taxes, the IRS kind of checks the name and Social Security number and with the Social Security database, and if it never kicked it out that it was an incorrect name, then yeah, you shouldn't have any issue. If you want to get it fixed for whatever reason, then yeah, you just have to take your original birth certificate, his original birth certificate, down to Social Security, fill out an SS5, Social Security 5 is the application. Take the original birth certificate. You can't do this online because it's a change of name essentially. And you just take it down to the local Social Security office and they switch it. So, they could have done it when he filed for benefits. That's always the easiest way to make changes when you actually file, but you can do it anytime, no problem whatsoever. I mean, Social Security, people get married and divorced all the time, so they change names all the time. So not an issue. What paperwork do you have to have with you for a phone appointment with the Social Security office? It really depends what type of benefits you're filing for. If you're just filing for straight retirement benefits, don't really need anything. You should have everything memorized, your name and where you worked and all that kind of stuff. One thing I would definitely do is before your appointment, go into Social Security, mysocialsecurity.gov, and make sure you check your earnings record. Because that's how they determine how much you're going to make for the rest of your life, is how much you actually paid into Social Security. So if you make sure your earnings record is correct. So, oh, we got a lot of Catherine became a silver member, and William became a gold member, and Lou became a silver member, and Bruce Diane became a silver member. You guys are awesome. And Ed became a gold member. That wasn't me, it was another Ed. Eds are awesome like that. So, all right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Me and my son appreciate it. Learner International. I finally got some kind of answer. The SSA International office in New Jersey told me the FBU has received all my documents, but due to understaffed, I may need to wait an additional 4 months. That's exactly, yes, yes. And there was a recent OIG report, the Office of Inspector General, who looks for fraud, and they find fraud every single day. Social Security employees find fraud every single day. Elon Musk wasn't able to find any. He didn't find one penny. He made a bunch of allegations, but he didn't find any one penny of fraud in Social Security. But Social Security employees and the OIG find it all the time. But an audit by the OIG of the FBUs and the Office of International Operations has found that their accuracy in processing claims aren't as good as field offices, regular offices throughout the country. So kind of, keep that in mind. So what type of things could they miss? Obviously, the number one thing is, reviewing your earnings record. So it's incumbent upon you to review your earnings record to make sure Social Security, gets the right amounts. And then they miss a lot of the entitlement dates, the month of entitlement. So your Learner International, for your particular case, they said it's going to take 4 months. You are protected. It's called a protective filing. So if when they decide to start your benefits, if they start it 4 months in the future, you call them out on it and say, hey, no. I was protected. As soon as I contacted the Federal Benefits Unit back in, December, January, February, whenever, that's if I wanted my benefits and I was entitled to start my benefits at that month, that's when I wanted to start. Don't rip me off for that 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. I want my benefits to start at that time. So that's one of the things they're missing is the month of entitlement when you were first entitled to get those benefits. So make sure they do the right thing. Rebecca, I was told I had an overpayment of over $700, and I received a letter yesterday that they would take $80 a month until March 2026. So, wow. Yeah, that's kind of good and bad. The administration just changed it, and now they just might hold 100% of it. But maybe that's you're receiving SSI. SSI, they only can do 10%. If you're good with that, and you agree that you do have a $700 overpayment, and you're good with $80 a month being taken out, then you're good. If you're not good with either of those, if you say, no, I don't owe $700 or I can't afford $80 a month, then you need to reach out to them and say, hey, we need to reduce it or delete the overpayment because it's not, it's not my fault and I don't have the ability to repay. So yeah. Diane, my husband is deceased. He worked. Do these benefit me being a spouse? Yeah, if survivor benefits, if you're eligible for survivor benefits, then yeah, I would definitely check out the survivor benefits. So let's see here. Oh, our area here in Australia is Manila, Philippines. We do not go to an office. We write to them through email. Yeah. And I knew the person, I used to work with the person, Jason, who was in charge of Philippines, but in Manila there, he was actual Social Security employee. Awesome guy. Awesome guy. But unfortunately for y'all, he is no longer there. He left in April of last year, and I don't know who the new person is there. But I know they're understaffed. I mean, that's across the board. Let's see here. Wonder what it would be like to live in Paris. Could I afford rent there? Yeah, rent is pretty cheap in Paris. You're talking about my hometown, Paris, Texas, right? Yeah. So if you want to look at an Eiffel Tower yes, of course, we have an Eiffel Tower in Paris, Texas. And yes, of course, it does have a cowboy hat on top of it. So I'm sure you're talking about the other Paris. So anyway, so I heard there is another Paris out there somewhere. So Bonnie, thank you for all your help you give to others. You are welcome. You are welcome. You got to go see the Eiffel Tower in Paris, Texas, one time in your life. So I've taken 2 loans in my life. I repaid my loans. I wouldn't dare expect another person to pay my loan. I don't understand why people entertain the idea of someone else paying for their loans. Yeah. I really like your channel. We need to protect what's left of the New Deal. Yeah, I agree. And the Great Society with Medicare and all the rest of it that was started in under Johnson in the 1960s, right? I am not a U.S. citizen, but I still pay 30% tax before it leaves the U.S. Yeah, if you're a green card holder, yeah, I stay away from taxes. But yeah, the IRS, man, they get you anywhere, right? Hello, I have a daughter-in-law, never worked, was receiving SSDI, and now they're reviewing her case. She can't read and don't understand things well. What should she do? You can be her representative payee. So if you want to be her representative payee, you can definitely do that. If she wants to, take care of her own benefits and she doesn't want you to be the representative payee, when you call, when she calls Social Security and has questions or issues or filling out paperwork and stuff like that, or you visit, then the 2 of you can be there, and she can say, "Hey, I give you authorization to talk to my mother." And Social Security can, discuss all those issues right there if something that your daughter-in-law can't understand. So yeah, no problem whatsoever. And thank you so much for taking care of your daughter-in-law like that. But yeah, Social Security, if she can't fill out the forms and all that, reviewing her case, then you can definitely help her with it. And then they can put you down as a kind of an alternate contact in case there's any other issues. But yep, no problem whatsoever. You can definitely, if she has to give you authorization. Again, if you're the representative, if she assigns you the representative payee, then you have to fill out the representative payee form. And then basically Social Security won't be able to talk to her anymore. They have to talk to you. But if your daughter-in-law, doesn't want to do that, then it's no problem. You just do it on a case-by-case basis, and she says, yep, you can talk to her. Yeah. If you have a Charles Schwab account in the U.S., you can transfer money from the Philippines, and the ATM charges are waived by Schwab. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I think a lot of people do that variation. The problem with WISE or wire transfers is they don't get a good rate of exchange. If Social Security deposits in your foreign bank account, the savings is better. Yes, that is a fact. Yeah, you always have to watch out for the exchange rate. Everything going kind of crazy. The exchange rate in a lot of countries are going up and down and sideways. And so, Ed, this is the other Ed that donated or subscribed. Thank you, or became a member. Thanks for all your help. I retired last year at 65 and took all of my retirement savings, IRA, 401k, in a lump sum payment. Do these count against earned income limit? No, they do not. So the $1 billion you took out of your 401k doesn't count against anything. It might cause you to have a higher Medicare Part B premium 2 years after that fact. It's called the IRMA, income related monthly adjustment amount, a higher Part B and a higher Part D. Sometimes the particular ones are exempt and sometimes, but so you may or may not next year or the year after get a extra charge for your Part B and Part D. And at that time, then you need to figure out, whether those things should trigger that extra. So thank you for just being straight about information. No hype here. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't care about Medicare. I'm never coming back. Okay. Yeah. I had 2 people that husband and wife that were born in Spain, and they came and they worked in the United States for 40 years. And then their parents passed away and they went back to Spain, and they were paying Medicare. Both of them were paying Medicare for 2 years, $185. And then so they lost, unbelievable amount of money. Cause they're obviously never coming back. Yeah, so they wasted a lot of money. So I'm retired now, 2 years and 64. I went to file taxes and saw I only going to receive $37 back and would cost $87 to file. I felt it wasn't really worth it. Was that a smart move? Yeah, I don't do taxes. So. Please comment on schedule and new deputy commissioner evangelist. Thank you all for your help. The new commissioner of Social Security. Deputy commissioner. The new one. I've never really talked. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with. Yeah. I've known a lot of people. I've known a lot of people. You know, the previous commissioners of Social Security. They always came and visit our office, and the OIG and all the big wigs used to come to our office because we were one of the most efficient offices in the country. And a lot of offices used to copy us. But I've never met that person. Thank you so much for addressing overseas concerns. You are welcome. Thanks for covering overseas Social Security. Can you elaborate on the 45-hour rule for working? So yeah, that is for self-employment. So I think for overseas, it's actually 80 hours. If you're doing, are you talking about there's a 45-hour rule for if you're on disability and you work at a company for 45 hours and they take the market rate for whatever you do and they use that. And when you're if you're self-employed, there's always kind of weird things you have to do. But in terms of working overseas self-employment, then there's different things because they can't take because living overseas, the annual earnings limit of 23,400, you live like a king in a lot of places over there. So they take it based on the hours. And so it's usually 80 hours. But just between you and me, anyway, can you retain Social Security disability insurance? Can you retain your benefits? You're living overseas. How do they know anyway? Can you retain your benefits to live somewhere you could afford? Yes, absolutely. Is the proof of life form sent to your overseas address or your U.S. address? If they send it to your mailing address. So if your mailing address is overseas, then that's where they send it. So that's why I always recommend, you got to make sure your mailing address. Sometimes they'll send it to your residence address, which is overseas, and I've seen it all kinds of different ways. But whatever the case may be, because you've got two addresses on your MBR, your master beneficiary record. You've got your mailing address and your residence address. And most of the times they're the same, but sometimes they're different. So I would make sure you check your email on both locations. A virtual post office is usually pretty good. So what they do is you get it and they scan it and stuff so you can see it, and then, you can print it off. Ed, I have been following Thanks for the Light for so many. You're welcome. However, I'm 71 and struggling to live only with my retirement. I have Medicare Advantage. Can I get some benefits from my ex? Yeah, if you were, married to that person for 10 years or longer, if their benefit amount is less than half of yours. So I would definitely, if you don't know, how much your ex is receiving, or if they're receiving benefits, if they're 62 or older, it doesn't matter. I would call Social Security and give them his Social Security number. If not, just give him the name, date of birth, as well as where he was born, and they'll find his social, and they'll tell you whether the benefit calculations work out, whether your benefit amount is less than half of his. If so, then you can file for those benefits. But remember, another thing that a lot of people miss money on is they do that. Let's say Maria does that, and the Social Security employee says, no, you're not entitled to benefits. And Maria says, well, I was married to the guy for 20, 25, 30 years. I'm not currently married. How can I not be entitled? And Social Security employee just says you're not entitled. So you go on with the rest of your life thinking you're not entitled, you're not eligible for benefits on that record. But what the Social Security employee might have actually meant was the calculations, because he is still alive, your ex-spouse is still alive, there's no money left over because, again, your benefit has to be less than half of his. You get your benefits and then up to half of his. One offsets the other. But what a lot of people miss, and that's why I please subscribe and like and share. So this goes out to people. I'm sure we're going to save some people some money, get some people money. That if Maria was told that and she went on and she just forgot about it, and then 5 years later, something happened to him, those calculations go out the window. For survivor benefits, it's no longer up to 50%, it's up to 100%. And Maria's 71 years old, so she's past her full retirement age, so she's eligible for up to she's eligible for 100% of his benefit amount. But a lot of people were told, yeah, I tried to see if I could get benefits on my ex, a few years ago, and Social Security said no. They said no at that time. But situation has changed. You need to call back. So if you know anybody like that, please, reach out to them and say, hey, weren't you married to someone and for at least 10 years and yada, yada, yada. And, oh yeah, I was told by Social Security. Okay. Was that person still out there alive and kicking at that time? Yeah. All right. Well, let's call again. Yeah. I have been drawing Social Security since 12/23 and moving to the Middle East. I keep my current American bank account correct, so the direct deposit keeps going. Correct? Yeah. Keep it. Yep. Everything sounds like it's going to stay the same. Just have, make sure you can get your mail. If you keep your American bank account, doesn't sound like an issue. How can I find my Medicare ID number? I turned 65 in May and I've never received a Medicare card. I want to sign up for an Advantage plan, but I must have that number to do so. What can I do? You can call my partners at Chapter and they can look in the system. You just give them your information and they can, May, you should have already got your card. So it's probably lost in the mail somewhere. If you're receiving Social Security benefits, if you're already receiving Social Security benefits, then they've already signed you up for Part A and Part B automatically. If you're not receiving Social Security benefits, then you had to have filed to start Part A and Part B. So it depends what situation you're in. But if you're already receiving benefits, you should have received that card and it got lost somewhere. So you can reach out to call Medicare, 800 Medicare, or you can call Chapter there and they can find your Medicare number and they can find a good Medicare Advantage plan for your neck of the woods. But if you're a regular viewer, always check out Medicare supplement plans first, the Plan N and Plan G. Ask the guys at Chapter says, hey, okay, what's a Medicare supplement plan? What's the difference between N and G? What's the difference between that and Medicare Advantage? And if it's not good for you and you still want Medicare Advantage, then more power to you. So nobody could tell you. It's completely your decision, your budget, your health, everything. Asking for a friend. All right, Stella, you are too awesome. Is receiving Social Security, does withdrawing from an IRA affect Medicaid? Thank you. Well, if you have an IRA, that should have affected Medicaid to begin with. So when someone files for Medicaid, because Medicaid is a low income, low resource program, a welfare-based resource, when that person filed for Medicaid, if they did, then Medicaid will say, hey, do you have any other money out there? And if the person said, yeah, I've got an IRA with, $10, $20, $30,000, then wouldn't be eligible for Medicaid to begin with. But if the IRA is only a couple, $3,000, then it's usually not an issue. But yeah, if this person now pulls out of that IRA and Medicaid finds out about it, they might have an issue and says, where'd this, $10, $20, $30, $40,000 come from? Oh, it was an IRA. Well, why didn't you tell us that 6 months ago when you applied for Medicaid? So hopefully that's not the case. Yes, I was married for over 30 years and not qualified for Medicaid. Okay. Yeah. So if you, okay, you're the one that was 71 years old, filing for, so you obviously met your 10-year marriage. So. I'm moving overseas. Did he give number of form we'd receive or need to turn in? Yeah, it's the 7162. So you don't need to turn it in, by yourself. They mail it to you. If they don't mail it to you, then you don't need to do anything. So my husband moved overseas and died there recently. Shouldn't the Social Security here in the U.S. have knowledge of his death? If not necessarily, they will only know when they send that proof of life form and it's not returned, or if you or someone notifies Social Security of his passing. So I would definitely do that. So yeah, because foreign countries don't notify Social Security of someone's passing. Sometimes they do and stuff, but yeah. Um, so if this is your husband, possibly you're entitled to survivor spouse benefits. So maybe you should contact Social Security and tell them of his passing. So if he's receiving benefits, because that's one of the things, if you're currently married to him and he's receiving Social Security benefits and then they go in some foreign bank account or wherever, and they're not supposed to because he's receiving benefits 6 months after his passing, and then Social Security can come back after you because you're his wife, and they can say, "Hey, you owe us that 6 months," and maybe because he was living overseas, you don't have access to that 6 months of the benefit, so you have to pay it out of your pocket. So I would, again, I'm just kind of throwing out a possible bad situation there that you might want to address. So. All right, we are over an hour and I've got tons of questions. Unfortunately, I'm just not able to get to. Let me see some people I've never recognized here. Tigrito. I went in person at SSA to start my retirement. I turned 62 last September of 2024. I told her I need to start. You started at last September of 2024. Now they're saying that I need a proof of physical documents. Yeah, if they need some type of proof, probably the only thing possibly need was a certificate of naturalization, your green card, or your birth certificate if something's wrong. Yeah, and if they need it, um, if you get it to them, then they better start your benefits effective September. So they'll pay you all that back pay. So it should be an issue. Shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. I just filed November 2024. You just answered my federal benefit unit question, so my benefits should be backdated to what date? To the date you were eligible for those benefits. So if you filed in November and you were eligible for the November payment, you better make sure, they do the right thing and yes, get your benefits. If you have never lived in another country, a culture country, it is worth all your time to learn the cultural norms. It may end up in isolation, and the locals may not be as receptive. Best love where you were going. Yeah, there's a lot of people that vacation overseas, and vacationing and living overseas ain't the same thing. Yes, and I was in the Marine Corps and I was stationed overseas and living on a military base, U.S. military bases. It's like living in the United States in a lot of respects. So that's not like living overseas. So yeah, you definitely, and so that's one of the reasons I'd say, be careful with Medicare. Because you're like, oh yeah, I've traveled to Panama and Costa Rica and the Philippines and stuff like that, and I loved it, and so I'm going to go over there and I'm just going to burn all the bridges, Medicare included. And then a year, 2 years, 3 years later, it's like, oh wow, it's not like vacation, is it? And then they come back and they can't get their started till January, February, March, and then they get penalties for the rest of their life. And so just make sure you do the right thing. All right. So we're way over an hour. So that'll be it for today. I'll be back again tomorrow and I'll get a lot more questions and hopefully I'll get more answered at that time. Y'all take care. Have a beautiful night.